Imagine walking into a polling station and scanning your iris to cast a vote, then heading to the airport to board a flight using a biometric passport. You live in a modern state with all the standard administrative tools. But if you try to find your country on an official world map, the image glitches and dissolves. Legally, you don't exist. You are in Somaliland. It sits right on the northern edge of the Horn of Africa, sharing borders with Ethiopia, Djibouti, and Somalia. For over 3 decades, the people here have independently built and maintained the complete machinery of a functioning democracy. Yet until very recently, the international community legally refused to acknowledge a single square inch of it. The physical proof of this country is everywhere. They print their own currency, the Somaliland shilling, and manage their economy through a brick-and-mortar central bank. They hold regular, peaceful elections. And when the votes are tallied, the losing side actually accepts the results and steps down. This chart compares 2024 Freedom House scores. Somaliland scores a 43 out of 100, marking it partly free. Somalia, legally claiming Somaliland as its northern territory, scores an 8. That single-digit score means the government claiming jurisdiction is officially classified as not free. Maintaining a stable representative government for 34 years while surrounded by intense regional hostility makes Somaliland a geopolitical anomaly. The reason for this diplomatic limbo comes down to one strict rule from the African Union. Colonial-era borders across the continent must remain exactly as they were drawn. The AU leadership worries that redrawing a map for one successful breakaway territory will trigger a domino effect, emboldening dozens of other secessionist groups across Africa. They point to the historical devastation of Nigeria's Biafra conflict in the late 1960s as the primary reason why altering established borders is considered too high a risk. Today, active movements like the one in Western Sahara are watching closely. The AU knows these groups would instantly use Somaliland's official recognition to legitimize their own campaigns. But Somaliland offers a clever legal counterargument. They claim this isn't secession at all. They were a separate, independent British territory in 1960, before entering a union with Somalia that a British judge later found was never properly ratified. They argue they are simply reclaiming sovereignty they already held. Regardless of the legal logic, international law has kept the territory trapped. Its functional success is ignored because the African Union views any change to the map as a threat to continental stability. That lack of recognition carries heavy, real-world consequences for the people living there. Operating without an official seat at the UN means a complete financial blockade. The government cannot access loans from the IMF or the World Bank, and the Somaliland shilling holds zero value the moment you cross the border. To survive, the economy relies heavily on domestic pillars. 50% of their entire GDP comes from exporting livestock, primarily sheep, goats, and camels, sent across the water to Gulf states. They also leverage their physical geography. The port of Berbera, backed by a $450 million investment from Dubai's DP World, handles a massive amount of regional shipping. This animated graph reveals an impending economic crisis. In early 2025, diaspora remittances, which typically bring in $1 billion a year, dropped by 50%, crashing straight into a youth unemployment rate that exceeded 70%. It acts as an economic prison, actively draining the territory of its next generation of talent. Then, in late 2025, the 34-year status quo finally broke. Israel became the very first UN member state to formally recognize Somaliland as an independent sovereign nation, shattering the diplomatic taboo. The Trump administration quickly signaled interest as well. For Washington, formally acknowledging the territory offers a strategic foothold to counter Chinese influence in the region. Global powers care about this specific piece of land because it sits right next to the Bab el-Mandeb Strait right here. 1/3 of all global shipping passes through this narrow bottleneck. With Israel making the first move, the global blockade is fractured. It forces regional powers like Ethiopia and middle powers around the world into a position where they must actively decide whether to support recognition or oppose it. Somaliland has spent 3 decades proving it can govern itself. They built a stable economy, issued their own passports, and held peaceful transfers of power, all without a global safety net. The people living there have already built the house of a modern nation. Now they are simply waiting for the world's paperwork to hand over the deed.